In this video, we'll be talking about duct systems and duct types in the Mechanical Productivity Pack. So I've started here with the title sheet open. Since the initial release of the MPP, we've expanded the duct types quite a bit, and as well as the systems. We got some user feedback on outside air system classification, which doesn't really exist in Revit. So you're either using supply air or return air for that application, but we ended up adding outside air that could be used in both situations depending upon what duct system you're connected into. So this is the title sheet right now. You can see the duct systems that we have set up in place. Just looking at a couple of them. So with outside air, there's a couple different options that you have. Like I said, whether you're connecting to the supply air system classification or return air system classification. If I pull this down, you can see all of our options. We added some abbreviations at the front, so they're all sorted in regards to system class. So we have, some flue gas, general exhaust, greased exhaust, relief air, smoke exhaust. And for return air, we have return air, outside air, transfer air, and we have, then for supply air, combustion air, outside air. And, now with these, with the world of DOAS units and makeup air units now that we're seeing more commonly, we also added conditioned outside air and unconditioned outside air, so you can differentiate that on your project if you so wish. So that's some of the updates to the systems. Now let's talk about the duct types. So if I go down in the browser here, let's look at expand out ducts. So what we ended up doing is we had a handful of these already in the previous release of the MPP, but we wanted to make it more clear to users on what duct type to use for a given application and what type of takeoff or T would be used in that given situation. So as you know, Revit has some dampers, some takeoffs with dampers in them. And so we've called those out, and we've also identified which duct systems have insulation and which ones don't. So in round duct here, if you had a takeoff to a grill and it was exposed, you could choose this option. If you have insulation on your ductwork, then you would choose this option. Of course, then with each duct type, we have different elbow options and T options as well. A lot of these are set up as takeoffs, but there's something to be said about that because right now the takeoffs don't calculate the static pressure drop coefficient correctly, which is a known bug that's been discussed by many people in Revit. So if you want more accurate pressure drop calculations without having to input a lot of manual values, you should use T's in that situation. We can talk more about that as we go on. So let's go to a couple plans and let's see what some of these duct types look like. So let's go to the sample project in this case. All right, so I have some ductwork here, and we're just going to show a couple of the different takeoffs and connection types and duct types, and we'll go from there. So I have some ductwork drawn. Right now, this is a rectangular duct that uses takeoffs and mitered elbows. All the branches now, so this duct is let's change this to first floor. Okay, so it's 18 feet up. This is just a hypothetical situation, no ceilings, so these grills are actually floating out here 14 feet up above the finished floor elevation. So what we've noticed in the Revit 2016 upgrade is swapping out takeoffs don't work as well as they used to. So for example, if we drew a duct with a conical takeoff, so like this takeoff, 1.5 diameter elbow size, go up to 18 feet. Let's make our connection here. So what we learned in Revit 2016 and 17, now I haven't tested this in 18, is swapping these out to ones with dampers don't quite function as you would expect. So if we wanted to choose this takeoff and say, no, I want this takeoff to have a damper. So let's choose round takeoff with standoff damper. This one actually worked, which is surprising. If we swap to some other ones, and of course that one worked. So never mind that. Apparently there was an issue and now it's been addressed, but I guess just be aware of that. So we've made the conical takeoffs as round duct to rectangular ductwork. If you have the damper and you need to switch it out, a lot of times you're going to want to change the actual duct type. So I'm going to undo a couple of those steps here. Okay, so now if you wanted to draw a different type of branch ductwork, we can start drawing from this diffuser. So in this case now, let's include the damper at the takeoff. So we're going to choose takeoff with damper. Let's say this is exposed. Choose our grill. We're already at 18 feet where the ductwork is, so we can choose that. And we'll get our takeoff. You know, swapping out duct types works just the same as it always has in Revit. You know, you can tab over a selection. You can select it. You can say change type. And maybe this is going to be insulated ductwork. So let's change the takeoff with damper to be insulated, which will move the lever further out for insulation to be able to be installed behind it. On the rectangular side, just the same, we have a lot of different types already set up with different elbow radiuses. So if we started off with a rectangular duct, so let's do like a mitered elbow. So let's go up to 18 feet. We can make that connection. We could also, you know, do radius elbows. So a takeoff 1.5 width radius. So that's going to put the elbow there. All right, so those are some of the duct types shown for you guys. Let's talk about some round ductwork now. I have some model on the second floor, which we'll take a look at. So let's go up to the second floor right now. So round ductwork and round grills. So we have some drops coming from an RTU. This is actually the sample project which you guys have received. So you can play around with this as well. Round ducting connections. So, you know, if this ductwork is going to be exposed, there's a couple different options that you can choose from. So right now I have some grills placed and, you know, we can make some connections. So let's stretch this duct out. So it's real easy to just make your connections from the diffuser or from the duct. It doesn't really matter. So a lot of times I use the connect into, so selecting diffusers, you can hit 2.5. Sorry, that's my keyboard shortcut. You can select a diffuser and you can hit connect into here. And then you can choose any nearby duct. It's really nice because it'll put all the bends and offsets for you and make the connection for you, saving time. So even like this diffuser that's right underneath just as well, we can use connect into, and you can choose your duct. All right, so let's look at some of those connections in section. So let's go to this section here. So now say you had a situation where you wanted to show a round damper. In this situation, you could select the duct and we can change the type again. So this is a round takeoff. However, this is a saddle takeoff because it's coming off of a round duct. So in In reality, this particular type of connection should be you should select the saddle takeoff option. So now this is curving around the section of duct there. If you needed to have a damper on that as well, you could change the type. And you could choose saddle takeoff with damper exposed. There you go. Now you've got your damper on there. All right, going back to plan view, we have added the ability to tag some of these dampers. Previously you could throw a tag in here. So like this particular duct, this round duct, we could put a manual balancing damper there, and we could tag that because that's a duct accessory. However, this one was a duct fitting and we weren't able to tag that previously. I'm going to throw a rectangular damper in there as well. So rectangular manual balancing damper. Okay, so now we have the option to tag these, which we always did. However, the fittings as well now, we can tag these fittings. Let me change this tag type to be a damper tag. And we can tag that information as well now too. I haven't edited that value just yet, but when you guys get this model, you'll see these damper tags filled in. And then, the damper tag on this round duct could be updated as well. So these tags are dynamic as well. We don't have a specific video on the dampers, but if this damper changed from a balancing damper to maybe a motorized control damper, the tag is going to update accordingly, which is reflected on the title sheet. Same with like a fire damper or combination fire and smoke damper. So the tags will update with those. The new feature is really the ability to tag these takeoffs. All right, so let's go look at some more real-world situations in the sample project specifically. So we haven't really talked about the generate layout yet a whole lot, and really that's a very powerful tool as you see moving forward with some of the auto-sizing VAV boxes and air terminals. Using the generate layout is going to help you get your documents done faster and then just massaging things from that point. So I'm going to talk about creating systems, which really should be your step one when you're laying out your HVAC and you have your air terminals placed. So this is a VAV box here. I can right click on the discharge from it. We're going to create a duct system. A lot of times I end up creating these systems with the unit name in them. So this is VAV box 2-1 supply air. So everyone has their own preference for system names. That's how I like to do it, because then all the VAV box 2-1s are sorted next to each other. So now with that particular system, we're going to add some grills to it. So we're going to edit it. Let's add these diffusers to it. All right, so now we're going to generate a layout. So I'm going to select this particular diffuser, and this is just a simple case here, but we're going to click on Generate Layout. We'll look at a couple different options here. So this is so a lot of times I end up with network solutions, but there's perimeter and intersections depending upon what you want to do. So you can look at a couple different options here. Here's another one. Option 3 and option 4. So that looks a lot like option 1. They're all kind of similar, but let's look at our settings. And so I've already checked, and this VAV box is at 11 feet. So this particular offset on the main I want at 11 feet. So we could choose what main we want. Rectangular duct, I'm going to choose takeoff 1.5 width elbows. And then under the branch settings, we could choose what type of branches we want. So in this case, I have a lay-in ceiling. So I'm going to put my dampers right at the takeoffs for the grills, or for the branches of duct. So I'm going to choose round duct with damper, and everything's going to be insulated. So I'm going to run the branches at 11 feet. I'm not going to allow any flex duct in my model. The contractor on my projects will have to look into the spec for that information. Flex duct has its place, however, I don't model with it because it doesn't flex and update well over time, especially when you start changing elevations. So I've seen some flex duct do some very funky things. So I avoid it. I stick with hard connections, which actually is better for pressure drop. So you guys can do it however your firm does it. I'll hit OK on those settings. And now we can stick with this layout. We can hit finish and it'll draw it. Otherwise, we can modify some of the things on this layout. And I guess I should talk about the blue lines and the green lines. The blue lines are going to be modeled as duct mains. The green lines in this situation are going to be modeled as the branches. So however we define those in the settings. So I'm going to edit this layout just to show a little bit about what you can do. Well, actually, let's do that in the next piece that I'm going to do. So this one, I'm just going to finish the layout. All right, so here's our duct main settings. That was the blue lines, and here's our branch duct settings. So now this is probably the quickest way to get things drawn, I find, and then I end up just modifying things that I want to modify. So like in this particular situation, maybe instead of doing this, maybe you want this duct to come over and be capped. So we can cap that duct. And now we can just drag these branch ducts into here just the same and show the dampers that way. So like this given duct, let's stretch this back a little bit. And so now this was the branch settings that we used, round takeoff with damper on insulated duct. So let's draw that connection, and then we'll draw this connection as well. There we go. So everything's connected. Our VAV box now has 400 CFM connected, so both of these diffusers are at 200 CFM. So just like that, real quick to make your connections and modify your layout. So let's talk about a little bit bigger layout. So down here, just the same in the sample project, we have an open office area. We have a VAV box already connected to our duct main that goes up to the RTU. I guess I should note on static pressure calcs, there's two ways to add grills to a system with VAV boxes. So this method was adding the grills to the VAV box, which creates a subsystem. And this side of the VAV box, when it's connected over here, will follow the RTU system. So this particular box, if we draw our ductwork over to the rooftop unit, and we make that connection, this ductwork is going to follow the system information from this main. And so here's a great situation where I don't want the damper here, so I actually want to change this type to be, let's select it, hit change type, and we just want the conical takeoff. And the elbows don't matter because I don't have any, but so we're going to update that. So now this system here, as soon as we connected it to the supply system from the rooftop unit, this updated. However, this now becomes a subsystem down here, VAV 2-1. So that's one method. However, your static pressure calcs in Revit will stop at the end of that system and they won't keep going. So if you want to have your air terminals go all the way to the rooftop unit, then you select your ductwork system, and instead of adding the grills to the VAV box, you add your grills to that bigger system. So we're going to edit system. We're going to add to it. We'll add these grills. And now the static pressure calcs will continue on through the VAV box up to the rooftop unit. All right, so let's generate a layout with these, with a bit more diffusers there. So let's generate a layout. So it's coming from this VAV box, which was the next open connector in that rooftop unit system. This isn't doing exactly what I want, so let's look at a couple different options. We definitely don't want to do that. That potentially could be a solution. So like I said, I typically end up in network settings. Let's look at our settings again. So we still have the round takeoff with 1.5 width. Our branches are still going to have the dampers insulated on them. So that looks fine. Let's modify one of these systems. So I'm going to go with this one. All right, so let's edit the solution. So when you see yellow lines like this, that's Revit telling you that with the fittings you've chosen in your settings, it can't make this connection work. So it'll end up breaking it. There'll be an open area there in the duct. To fix some of these, you just pick your duct and you stretch it down. So in this particular case, I want my main to come all the way to this spot here. We're going to have a little bit of cleanup, but I see this as the easier solution than drawing it from scratch. So I'm going to bring this down. We're going to take this duct main now, and we're going to move this one over. Okay. And now this we are going to bring down to there. And we've still got some breaks here. Revit's got some extra lines in it, but once again, I still see this as the simpler solution to redrawing it all. So now I'm going to take this branch and we can click and stretch that over. Let's move this section down. So actually here, I'm going to take this and we're going to move this over to here. Then let's take this, let's move this down, and let's stretch this over even more. So I'll probably take this, what Revit is calling the main. I'm going to move that over. So this isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to get us close, with most of these connections being made, and then we'll just make some adjustments with whatever's left. So I'm going to hit the green checkbox now. Okay, so it's got some issues, and that's just fine. There's some stuff here we can address. So for one, I want this particular duct to come through here and be capped. Okay, so first I'm going to break this duct here. We're going to separate these two. Okay, let's move this duct down. This duct I'm going to move out. Okay, so Revit doesn't like that because this duct is still too small for my given airflow. I can't size the duct yet, so I do have to give it a better size to start with. So let's make this a 12 by 12. Okay, and now we should be able to stretch this over. And now we can cap it. So a tool that a lot of people don't use too often under Modify is the trim multiple elements. So you can select that. We can choose the duct. Well, I guess first I got to delete this union. So we can choose our ducts and we can connect both of these with dampers. Now this particular branch goes out to a grill in the restroom. So really this grill should have a damper on it. So we can select that grill there and we can say include damper. And now we'll turn on some geometry for the damper there that can be tagged. So let's see if we can find that for you. So there's the grill tag. I'm going to keep tabbing through here. There's the damper. So just so you guys know it's there. That's a shared nested family. Let's make that one to the left. So we've got all of our dampers on the system. We have a little bit of cleanup left to do over here. So I'm going to delete some of these fittings and just stretch them in. So let's delete some of this stuff too. And then we can make our connections to this. I'm going to move this over. Okay, so that was a larger area using the generate layout tool. So I talked about the pressure drop calcs previously. Now when we look at this system here, this is for RTU2 supply air. We can go up to duct systems now, and as you guys see, we're getting a static pressure calculation. Also, we can, if we go back to modified ducts, we can do system inspector, and we can see what our critical path is. So in this case, this red line represents our critical path for duct static pressure drop calculations. So instead of having subsystems for VAV boxes, this is obviously beneficial because this is telling you the entire path from the air terminal back to the unit, what is the worst case. However, this particular situation is not, no, actually I stand corrected. It is including the static pressure drop at the VAV box. So you can see what's your worst case. So it's this air terminal right here, which apparently must have more airflow than this air terminal down here. So actually it's this T-fitting that's causing that. So the primary airflow path is going this way, so this outlet has a higher coefficient. So that's the static pressure drop calcs that are available with these fully connected systems. So you can make some updates, and then you can size your ductwork, and you can review it that way. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's just a quick overview of the duct types and using them. Not every firm is modeling all damper locations yet, and that's just fine. You can approach that how you want to. I guess the important part is we have duct types set up for anyone that does want to show all the dampers there and tag them accordingly. Thanks.